What I beheld that night when I was a child is something that still haunts me to this day. Whenever I shut my eyes, I always see that ghastly image that I had seen at the corner from my room. Even though I'm not really one to give credit to absurd superstitions, there was certainly something in the room with me that night. It sounded like an introduction to your cliche tale about a scary situation as you lay in your bed. A devilish apparition brandishing a blood-stained knife as it silently makes its way towards your bedside, ready to dice you into pieces, or banshee sitting on your chest is waiting for you to open your eyes so you can let out a blood-curdling scream that would shroud you in a cloud of fear. But what I saw was unlike any of those ridiculousness. Instead, what I beheld was more beginning evil, in the uncanary, bizarre, strange, and the more I stared at it, the more I felt subtle about growing horror beginning to swallow me. It was sort of a thing that you would only see to make you curious at first, but the more you observe it and notice the details in it, you transition from morbid curiosity to actual fear, and it would become stronger. That day, unlike any other, which only serves the increase to fear for me, I had gone to school and come home, complete my studies, and I had dinner, and then showered and hopped into bed. Since I'd spent the night before studying for hours for free tests that I knew I was going to have, it felt particularly exhausted. It wasn't long before I went to sleep. It was truly an an ordinary day for me. What happened next is the last thing that I could have expected. But I suppose the most terrifying and horrible things that can happen to us was when I least expected them to. Immediately I began to have a strange dream. In nearly every single dream I've had, it would always be a first-person perspective. I believe that's natural since I don't ever read about a case which someone hasn't or didn't dream about it. By saying that, I'm not saying that it is possible to not to, but I haven't come across that yet. More importantly, if I had come across that somewhere in a book or a video, I wasn't expecting to over-experience it. I dreamed about that I saw myself asleep, surrounded by a strange, unearthly mist. It twisted and turned oddly, as if it had a mindset of its own. It seemed to be slivered like a serpent around me, making things that each grew larger and wider as it swirled around me. What made it more unusual was that I appeared to be hovering in midair. It appeared as if I were lying down and levitating and prepared for a sacrifice. The general area around me was black, pitch black. It appeared that if I was floating in a dark void in space, without a shred of light or life anywhere. The only objects and figures I could clearly see were myself and the ethereal mist. I suddenly then heard a strange high-pitching cackling. I couldn't see where it came from. The darkness was everywhere, and it left me feeling a bit afraid. Unlike the most of the taunting, villainous laughter you hear when you entrap them, and they have you right where they wanted you. Soon it was joined by a chorus of others, and it was an army of evil, hideous laughter, ringing from all sides. I began to feel stark fear pounding and scratching inside of me like a rabid cage animal. I gazed at the hovering body during all this. My dream self didn't seem to be all that fazed by the evil laughter. When the laughter faded, I heard sort of intelligible, incoherent uttering. For a moment I thought it was just a manic babbling. As I listened to it more intentionally, I realized that it was a language, something that you would hear on things in the blackness of its dead, lost dimension were communicating with the other. The chattering voices, mixed with sinister chuckles every now and again, seemed to be circling my slumbering body, like a pack of ravenous hyenas, locking onto their prey. Then I heard one of the very shrill, frightful voices begin to recite in the incarnation. Its slow begins at first, but then it picked up the strength and speed as well as it went on. It resembled a sort of speech that I couldn't recognize at all. To my horror, I suddenly saw my body's eyes and mouth shoot open abnormally wide, and simultaneously, in an almost grotesque manner, which I'd never thought it was a human's, let alone mine, could ever do. My eyes then turned into huge, gaping holes, and my jaw hung down and stretched out, as if it was my face had become revolting, disfigured, and abnormal, even no more ghastly and bizarre that both my eyes and mouth had a disturbing blow glow coming out of them. The voice uttering an incarnation became more aggressive and louder. The spell became stronger as the lights within me grew more lurid. Lightning sparks began bursting out wildly in the mist that was now rotating around my body, even faster than before. The glowing that was emitting from my eyes and mouth had turned into free shafts of light, shooting upwards towards the empty space above. The chanting of the voice became deeper and powerful and more obnoxious as I heard the rumbling, like a rapidly approaching a thunderstorm, beginning to roar. The free shafts suddenly became bright, beams of energy spewing out, giving the darkness a tinge of blue hue. I couldn't take it as it was too much. What was happening to me? I shut my eyes, or at least I tried to, not daring to look at the horrible death of my body, dream or no dream. I then woke up, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom, as I was sweating and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were trembling violently, and my mouth was very dry. I quickly sat up in bed, trying to calm myself down. I closed my eyes and wiped the sweat off my forehead at the back of my head, catching my breath. I had that brief moment of bliss when you realize the terrible situation you were just in seemed to be so real and dreaded that was only a dream. I had returned to the comfort of my bed in my own home. My relief shifted into horror when I heard something that sounded like laughter. It wasn't pleasant laughter. It sounded like a chilling, high-pitched, demonic laughter. It was coming from my many throats, as clearly it didn't sound like a single one. What truly got me horrific, cold grip of my fear was that I realized that it was coming from the inside of my room. It was coming from a direction that I hadn't looked yet, desperately not wanting to yet to know that I needed to. I slowly turned my head to see where the laughing was in such evil delight. I saw a transparent, ghostly image of myself without eyes and an elongated, deformed mouth standing near a corner, seemingly dancing mad in ecstasy. It appeared to be lost in a daze, moving frantic, frenzied movement, as if it was a type unknown dance ritual. All around that version of me, I noticed 12 little imp-like creatures, dancing around with that same bizarre, unnerving style. It is difficult to explain how it appeared. My dream self, that's the best way I can describe it. It was dancing mindlessly, yet disturbingly joyfully with those evil goblins. It was like some sort of human puppets in one hands of the one dreamy, sadistic puppet master. There was still a thin layer of mist surrounding them as they did their strange and frightening little dance in the darkness, but as I just stared at this vision of this nightmarish horror, they disappeared. I didn't scream or anything of some sort, but I merely sat up on my bed in the dark until morning, with my mouth still hung agape and paralyzed with fear, pondering on I was to only see the effects of sleeplessness still in my brain, or if it was indeed dream elves, as a name I would have given them, dancing around with my dream itself. I never truly saw something as clear as vivid as my dreams, like I did that night since, but every once in a while, on cold, silent nights, I have dreams of elves encircling me as they dance surrounding me, wildly and fiendish in delight. I would feel myself beginning to join them, against my will with my horribly disfigured and distorted face, and my limbs were being tugged and tossed around by some invisible but powerful force. And as the other end of the room, I see myself lying in bed, asleep. And that, my little pretties, was The Dream Elves, a creepypasta written by Ranzenu. My final thoughts on the story. This was actually a pretty amazing creepypasta. I'm not gonna deny that one bit. Like, I remember hearing Silver's Stories actually narrated this story, and I decided to, go ahead and take a look at it. It was pretty messed up, to be honest. Seeing, what was it? Oh yeah. Seeing, well, you could definitely see there's a lot of messed up, stuff. Seeing all the elves, dancing around or whatever these figures were. Well, in my opinion, I could honestly think that this is most likely some paranormal activity or something, or maybe it's just this protagonist. But I would say that he kind of has been hallucinating these things. I would say he's probably what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. I was gonna say that he could be having sleep paralysis, but that wouldn't really make any sense if he was sitting up straight. If you get the idea of where I'm coming from, then yeah, you probably might get the idea. But of course, with that being said, I'm gonna sit here and say this now. This story, well, I could definitely say it was a pretty interesting creepypasta. It was well made in detail for what this is. It's definitely worth to read. Like, when I first saw this story, I honestly was quite confused because there was parts of the story that didn't really, make a whole lot of sense. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, there was a few stories that did, well, parts of the story actually that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. If you could kind of understand where I'm coming from. I mean, yes, this story does seem to be, interesting, but for whatever reason, something didn't really I'm not really sure how to put this, but something didn't really make sense if you understand what I'm trying to say. It doesn't really make sense. Maybe that might be just me, but you guys might maybe have your own opinions on that. I mean, the story of its own self was well written. I'm not denying that one bit. It was definitely well written. It was definitely worth to read. I mean, I personally thought this story was, amazing and well done for what this story really is. I mean, the grammar was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. The grammar was pretty good, as well as the sentence structuring, the storyline, everything about it was just flat out really well done. Like, I like how the story went out of its own self. It's a pretty damn good story. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna deny that right now. It's a pretty good story, especially with how, everything went out. I mean, it's pretty messed up in my opinion, yes, but at least it's still a pretty good pasta. I mean, it's beautifully well written. Like, whoever wrote this story did hell well. I know who wrote this story. I apologize if I said that cuz I already knew who wrote the story, but it's actually really good for what this one really is. I mean, I could honestly see that being the case. It's honestly pretty good. I mean, I honestly can see this being a pretty damn good creepypasta, especially for what it is. Like, I mean, I could definitely say this right now that this is actually a damn well made creepypasta. Like, I mean, I've seen this story like a few times actually. I mean, this story was actually pretty good though. I mean, I like the sentence structuring and the storyline and all that. I mean, it's a pretty good story for what this one really is. I mean, I personally thought it was enjoyable, and I personally thought this was well made. So, yeah. Anyways, I can't really say anything negative about this story about what I didn't like about it, but I really would wish maybe there was like more sense into stating why this person was, having these like visions or something. At least in that way we would have a better explanation on, what this is or something, or why that's the case. Like, if we get that, we would understand, exactly why this is happening. Like, maybe if that were to be the case, maybe it would be, well, believable in a sense, yes. But yet again, I mean, I'm not to judge right here or anything, but you guys maybe might have you guys might have like an idea as to, this story. So, you guys might have your own opinions on it. So, yeah. Anyways, with that being the case, that being said, like I'm gonna say right now, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story would have to be a 10 out of 10. Well, besides the one issue I did point out, it still gets a 10 out of 10. It's a pretty good story. Really original, really well made. I mean, yes, it's a bit confusing, and it does leave some things to make us wonder, but this story was not a bad story. I'm definitely saying that now. It's not a bad story. I honestly thought it was good. And yeah, with that being the case, and with that being said, what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out.